This is a asynchronous resource on really just to provide some key strategic advice for those schools thinking about moving to the Microsoft Cloud, specifically Microsoft 365. And it's a reflection piece really to point out the key learning points from the journey that we took all of our schools on some years ago, a project we called Shift to the Cloud. So firstly, as a starting point, what is this cloud stuff all about? And why did we move our schools to the cloud? The picture on the screen there is a historical view of the way IT runs in education. And in summary, it's not atypical, particularly in older schools, for data to be stored on-premise. So literally servers or big computers within the school building on-premise, and that has been the historical means of storing data. Whether that's bog standard kind of files or folders or other bits of data. I think the key one being your MIS or your management information system. All of that traditionally has been stored on premise and typically only accessed potentially when teachers and children are also on premise, in other words within the school building. Now that is a historical model, and it's one that can be improved upon. What's wrong with that model? Well, I think the key ones are it's expensive. So that equipment, those staff, the rooms which keep that equipment cool, these are all big capital items for schools to replace. And typically they get a big bill every 5 to 10 years. So it's an expensive model. And it's also an impractical model, principally because if that data is stored on premise, one of the limitations of that model is that staff can only access that data when they're on a school computer, sometimes even within this kind of school building. So for those reasons, a few years ago we decided to change that model and improve it, and essentially move out all of our United Learning schools to a model whereby that data isn't stored on premise, it's stored in the cloud. Now for us it was the Microsoft Cloud, but there are others. There are lots of benefits of that, but the key ones address the issues I've just described, which once you make that change, you can access that data from anywhere. And it's also a much cheaper way of doing it. Now, that might be quite daunting for schools embarking on that change, but I just wanted to reassure you with this slide. So we're a large group, I think close on 90 schools now, and it absolutely can be done. We've done it right across all of our schools under the timescale suggested there, and we're now at a position whereby all of our normal files and folders are in Microsoft 365. We have cloud MIS right across our schools as well. So it absolutely can be done, and I would argue that it should be done as well. So, why go through that change? Lots of change going on in schools. Why go through that change? Well, in summary, we fundamentally believe, and that project has shown, that using tools like Microsoft 365 or indeed the Google equivalent, these are just better tools, and I'll explain what I mean by that beyond the anytime, anywhere point in a second. And it's also proved to be cheaper as well, and I think that's an important point with school budgets being what they are and strained. Just a few illustrations of what I mean by better. This is a screenshot of Microsoft Teams. For those of you new to Teams or unfamiliar with it, think about it as the modern Microsoft equivalent of the shared area, accessed via apps or browsers, anytime, anywhere, on any device. That's just a simple screenshot of a combination of shared documents in the cloud combined with lots of conversations around those documents. And our experience and the experience of our schools is that that's just a much better way of working. We use terms like communication and collaboration all the time in education. And it's been our lived experience that using a tool like Teams allows us to genuinely do that much better. What do I mean by better? Well, faster, more collaborative, more people involved in shared work. There are some other benefits. These are slightly more IT related benefits, and these were some of the reasons why we did it. You'll be aware of the whole GDPR or data protection kind of issue. Moving to this kind of model eliminates data being stored locally on any one bit of hardware and essentially outsource the risk for data protection to a big provider like Microsoft. This is not supposed to be scare tactics, but this is a real BBC news article, and there were at the time we were doing this, and there still are, unfortunately, lots of examples where laptops or USB sticks get left around, and these are the key areas that are real data loss risks, not using an internet provided cloud service. These new internet-driven cloud services provide better resilience. Yes, the internet does go down on the odd occasion, but it's far and few between these days. Uptime is much better when compared to perhaps an aging old server, which if that goes pop, really can provide sort of schools problems. Schools should really be thinking about, if they've not done so already, getting rid of the risks that storing and moving data around on old USB sticks provide. These things do break and staff can lose data, but more importantly they are a key source of viral attacks to school systems, and really there are much better ways of doing it now. And like I said at the start, a key benefit to moving to this model is that you open up the accessibility of data to a variety of different hardware platforms and different devices, from mobile phones to tablets to laptops and so on and so forth. Okay, so on to the nuts and bolts of this. So what are these new systems called? In other words, where will my stuff go? Well, typically what schools do when they move to the Microsoft 365 Cloud is look at two areas, and the first one is my area, my stuff. That's taking the old personal areas on network drives on the left hand side there and moving it to the new tool. In Microsoft 365 speak, that new tool is called OneDrive. And then they also look at their shared area, and again that moves to a new tool in Microsoft 365 speak. The new shared area is Teams. So typically what they do is they move data that was in old shared areas, be they staff or student or students, and move that across to Teams.